Get out! This VIP room is not for people like you. The words sliced through the luxurious air of the Crown Line Grand Lobby like a blade. Ava Monroe stood still, her hand gripping the handle of her suitcase. Her heart pounded in her chest, yet her face remained cold and composed. That sentence was not just a personal insult. It was an echo of a past she thought she had left behind. In front of her, Harold Briggs, the front desk manager, puffed out his chest, his eyes brimming with contempt. Behind the counter, his polished leather briefcase sat neatly, a small symbol of power. Harold was used to deciding the fate of guests with just a few words. He thought today would be no different. "But I booked this room 3 weeks ago, and I've already paid in full," Ava replied, her voice low but clear. She held up her phone, the screen glowing with a confirmation email. The $800 displayed brightly, undeniable proof. Harold glanced at it, the corner of his mouth curling. "That room has been given to a more deserving guest. This isn't a budget motel. We have standards here." The word standards dropped like a verdict. Ava's eyes darkened. Standards of what? Skin color? Background? Or simply the ability to judge someone by their appearance? She said nothing, but inside, old memories surged back. She had heard those words before, more than once. At 19, pushing a housekeeping cart down glittering hallways, she had seen how they sneered at guests who did not fit the standards. And now, 25 years later, that circle of prejudice had come full circle, aimed squarely at her. No one in the lobby knew that the woman being belittled before them was the new owner of the entire Crown Line Hotels chain. No one knew that beyond the plain suitcase and the modest off-the-rack suit, she carried in her bag a contract worth hundreds of millions, granting her the power to decide the future of every employee in this building. 3 minutes of tense silence passed. Ava stood her ground, her eyes locked on Harold. But to Harold, her silence was not control, but surrender. He raised his voice even louder. "We have standard rooms available. If you refuse, I'll have to call security for disturbing the peace." Security. The word fell like a familiar threat. For Harold, calling security was the end game of every dispute. Once 2 men in black uniforms appeared, every guest would be too afraid to fight back. But he did not know. Ava had been prepared for this. Her phone had been recording from the very start, capturing every insult, every threat. In her mind, she thought of the legal team waiting on standby at Richardson's office. She thought of Caleb, her eager young assistant who kept texting her for updates. She thought of Dr. Loretta Sinclair's stern eyes and her repeated warning, "We need evidence. Only undeniable evidence can bring this system down." Ava tightened her grip on the phone. Part of her wanted to scream at Harold, to rip the arrogance from his face, right there in front of everyone. But another part, the stronger part, whispered, "Not yet. Let him dig deeper." Suddenly, the revolving doors behind her swung open. A gust of cold air swept in along with the sound of confident footsteps. Gregory Stanton, the guest Harold had just mentioned, entered in a tailored Italian suit, his gleaming watch reflecting the chandelier's light. He did not need to look around. He was used to lobbies turning their heads toward him. "Peterson, good to see you again." Gregory laughed loudly, slapping Harold on the shoulder without glancing at the black woman standing right beside him. Instantly, Harold's demeanor changed. From cold and hostile, he transformed into a servile host, bowing slightly, his tone dripping with respect. "Mr. Stanton, an honor. Your VIP suite is ready." Ava's blood froze. His VIP suite? The very room she had booked, paid for, and confirmed 3 weeks earlier. "Excuse me." Ava stepped forward, her voice cutting through the air. "That is my room. This is my confirmation, with the booking code and the invoice. I paid in full." Gregory finally looked at her. His gaze slid slowly down her figure, dismissive and scornful. Then he let out a dry laugh. "There must be some mistake. I'm a platinum guest here. For 8 years I've never once been without a room." Ava did not blink. "I don't care who you are. I have proof, and I will not leave." The atmosphere thickened. Guests in the lobby began to turn their heads, whispering. A few discreetly pulled out their phones. A media storm could ignite with just one press of the record button. Harold frowned, unwilling to risk a scene. But Gregory had already made his move. In an instant, a stack of $100 bills appeared in his hand. The green notes slid across the counter and disappeared under Harold's hand so swiftly it looked like routine. "We can settle this quietly," Gregory said, his eyes still fixed on Ava. "Find another place. Here we have guests of greater importance. A public, merciless declaration." Ava's chest tightened, but her mind had never been sharper. This was the moment she had been waiting for. This was the very culture Crown Line had enabled for years. Discrimination disguised as priority for VIP clients. Corruption wrapped in a handshake. Prejudice concealed under the word standards. She looked at Gregory, then at Harold, then at the guests now discreetly filming. In her eyes burned not only anger, but an unbreakable resolve. This would be the last time they would get away with it. "Leave now before I call security," Harold hissed through clenched teeth. Ava did not answer. She locked her gaze on him, so sharp that Harold flinched. Then she stepped back, revealing the phone still lit in her hand, the red recording icon pulsing brightly. In that instant, a chill ran down Harold's spine. He did not understand why this woman could face him with such calm defiance. He had no idea that in just a few days his career would crumble because of the very words he had just spoken. As for Ava, she knew. The game had only just begun. 25 years earlier, in another hotel glittering with chandeliers, Ava Monroe was not standing at the front desk, arguing for her rights. She was bent over, pushing a housekeeping cart heavy with bed sheets, bleach, and frayed towels. Her wage was $8 an hour, just enough to cover the electricity bill, to buy a few cartons of milk for the infant son waiting in a cramped studio apartment on the West Side, and enough to feed a burning desire inside her. She had to escape a life priced so cheaply. Each morning, Ava slipped into a pale blue uniform and squeezed into crowded elevators with other low-level staff. The smell of cleaning chemicals clung to her skin, soaked into her hair. Yet in her bright black eyes there was no resignation, only fire. She observed, she watched how managers spoke to wealthy guests with wide smiles and deferential tones, then turned cold, dismissive, even mocking when serving black guests, foreigners, or anyone not dressed in luxury. Ava remembered vividly one winter evening. A black family approached the desk, holding out their reservation confirmation. The manager frowned, claimed there was a system error, and denied them. From her corner, clutching a rag, Ava heard the snickers of a few staff members. That's right, an error guests like that always cause errors. The laughter seared itself into her memory. In the noisy staff lounge during breaks, her co-workers gossiped and complained about difficult customers. Ava sat apart, opening a borrowed hotel management textbook. Its pages were filled with formulas on occupancy rates, room revenues, and operating costs. She devoured them like someone dying of thirst. In her mind, the numbers transformed into a vision, a hotel run with fairness, where everyone was welcomed, where profit was not bought at the price of humiliation. "What are you doing?" a co-worker asked curiously. Ava looked up, eyes shining. "I'm learning how to change this game." 3 years later, with every dollar saved from night and day shifts, Ava had enough to enroll in evening business administration classes at a community college. By day, she cleaned rooms. By night, she sat in classrooms, her mind stretched to the limit. Some nights, her eyes burned from lack of sleep, yet she forced herself to finish essays on customer service in the hotel industry. Her son grew up beside piles of papers on the study table, watching his mother work, study, and carry the weight of their lives. On graduation day, Ava wore a simple black gown, her hands trembling as she held her bachelor's degree. Friends patted her shoulder in congratulations, but in her heart it was more than joy. It was the beginning of a promise she had once made, to transform the hospitality industry into a place where every guest was respected. Opportunity came when she met Lawrence Beckett, owner of a failing budget hotel on the outskirts of Chicago. The weary man sat in his empty lobby and sighed. "I owe the bank, there's no way out." Ava stepped forward, her gaze firm. "Give me the hotel to manage. I don't need a salary. Just give me a share of the profits if I can turn it around." Lawrence let out a bitter laugh. "You? A former housekeeper?" "Exactly," Ava replied. "I know this place from the tiles to the bed linens. I know how to make guests feel valued. And if guests are happy, they will return. All you need to do is trust me." In desperation, Lawrence nodded, and from that moment, the miracle began. 18 months later, the hotel became a phenomenon. Ava enforced one iron rule. Every guest, regardless of skin color, accent, or attire, would be treated like royalty. Any employee caught showing discrimination was fired immediately. Word spread quickly of a small hotel where everyone was treated like nobility. Revenues skyrocketed, transforming a failing property into the most profitable hotel in the city. That was the first stone laid for Monroe Hospitality Group. Over the next 15 years, Ava acquired property after property, building an empire of 47 hotels across 12 states. The Monroe brand became synonymous with fairness and exceptional service. Customer surveys consistently ranked them at the top, but Ava never forgot the days of pushing a housekeeping cart. She kept an old habit, disguising herself, using false names, booking rooms as a regular guest to test her staff. Each time she traveled, she carried only an old suitcase, wore modest suits, no bodyguards, no business cards. Only that way could she see the truth. And she knew just one act of prejudice, one lapse in fairness, could stain the entire system. 3 days before Ava walked into the Crown Line Grand, her phone buzzed. On the line was Caleb, her young assistant. "Miss Ava, the deal is done. Crown Line Hotels is officially under Monroe Hospitality. They have no idea you're the new owner." Ava gazed out her high-rise office window, city lights sprawling like a river of stars. Inside her chest was not triumph, but foreboding. Crown Line had long been notorious for its rumors, discrimination, corruption, bias embedded in every corner. "Good," she answered. "Book a VIP room under the name Aria Robinson. I'll arrive as a regular guest. Prepare the team. If it's as I suspect, we'll need to clean house from top to bottom." On the other end, Caleb hesitated. "Are you sure you need to go undercover yourself? We could announce the acquisition now and enforce new policies immediately." Ava shook her head, her eyes resolute. "No. I need to see it with my own eyes. I need undeniable proof. Only then, when I strike, no one can offer excuses." That night, Ava held an online meeting with the board. Dr. Loretta Sinclair's voice was firm. We've prepared termination papers, lawsuits, and a new management team. But Ava, be careful. Don't let them label you as a disruptive guest. Public opinion can turn very quickly. Ava nodded, a faint but steady smile crossing her face. I know, but this time it's not just a takeover. This is a revolution. The next afternoon at 3:30, Ava pulled her old suitcase through the lobby of the Crown Line Grand. The ceilings soared high, crystal chandeliers glittered, and marble floors gleamed, reflecting each step. The opulence was dazzling, yet cold, like a gilded cage. She stopped at the front desk. 2 clerks busied themselves pretending to type, not bothering to look up. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. They knew someone was waiting, but chose to ignore her. Ava stood patiently. Inside, a voice echoed. Good. The more evidence, the better. She did not yet know that within hours, this very place would become an arena where every mask would fall. 3 minutes passed. 4. 5. Ava Munro still stood there, one hand on her suitcase, her gaze patient but sharpening with each second. At the front desk, 2 clerks, a blonde woman with glossy hair named Lydia Clark, and a man in a grey suit named Harold Briggs, kept themselves busy with meaningless tasks, stacking brochures, tapping the keyboard erratically, rearranging files that were already neat. The silence was not mere delay, it was a message. People like her didn't matter. Finally, Ava cleared her throat, soft but carrying through the marble lobby. "Excuse me, I'd like to check in." Lydia looked up, her lips curling into a forced smile. "Name?" "Aria Robinson," Ava answered, using the alias she had booked under. Lydia's fingers tapped slowly on the keyboard, deliberately sluggish. From time to time, her eyes drifted to Ava, scanning her modest suit and neatly tied hair with a mix of disdain and judgment. "There is a reservation," Lydia stretched the words. "But it seems there's a complication." Ava kept her voice calm. "What complication?" "The VIP suite you booked is no longer available." Ava pulled out her phone and immediately opened the confirmation email, showing the reservation code and the words, "Paid in full," printed in bold. "I booked 3 weeks ago, clearly confirmed. I even called this morning to reconfirm." Lydia glanced at the screen, shrugged indifferently. "The system sometimes has glitches. We can offer you a standard room instead, at the same rate." A wave of anger rose in Ava, but she kept a faint smile. "The same rate? I paid $800 for a VIP suite, and now you want me to take a standard room?" Harold cut in, his tone dry. "The hotel reserves the right to change reservations for operational needs. If you're not satisfied, you're free to leave. But if you cause a disturbance, we'll have to call security." The word security fell cold, tightening like a noose. At that moment, the revolving door spun open. Gregory Stanton, clad in a flawless Italian suit, strode in. The platinum watch on his wrist gleamed under the chandelier light. He didn't need to greet or glance around. The entire lobby turned toward him, as if pulled by gravity. "Harold! Long time no see." Gregory's booming laugh carried the confidence of a man used to domination. Instantly, Harold's demeanor shifted. Gone was the icy hostility, replaced by warmth as he bowed slightly. "Mr. Stanton, what an honor. Your VIP suite is ready." Ava felt the blood in her veins freeze. His VIP suite? The one she had booked? The one she had paid for? "Excuse me." Ava stepped forward, her voice steady yet carrying. "That is my room. I have the confirmation. I paid for it." Gregory stopped, his eyes sliding over her from head to toe. A smirk spread across his face. "You must be mistaken. I'm a platinum guest. I've never been without a room here." Ava held out her phone, eyes locked on his. "No mistake. Here is the confirmation, and I will not leave." The lobby air thickened. A few guests began pulling out their phones, secretly recording. The tension, the prejudice, the confrontation, all laid bare in public. Gregory scoffed, then performed a gesture he had perfected. He pulled out a thick wad of $100 bills. With swift fingers, he peeled off several and laid them on the counter, sliding them toward Harold. "We can settle this quietly," he said, his eyes fixed on Ava. "There are more important guests here." Harold didn't hesitate. His hand swept over the bills, making them disappear under the counter with the smoothness of a ritual, repeated countless times. Ava clenched her fist. That act, clear, blatant, was the very evidence she needed. Harold looked up, his voice heavy with false authority. "Ms. Robinson, your reservation has been cancelled due to operational reasons. We are ready to provide you with a standard replacement." "Operational?" Ava let out a sharp laugh. 5 minutes ago she said it was a system glitch. Now it's operational. "Which lie is it exactly?" Lydia pressed her lips together, struggling to hold her smile. Gregory folded his arms, looking at Ava as if she were an amusing spectacle. "You're wasting everyone's time," he said flatly. "Just know this isn't a place for you." Ava looked around. Guests watched closely, some uneasy, some entertained. She realized one thing. This was no longer about a room. This was the raw stage of discrimination. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, likely Caleb or Dr. Sinclair checking in. But Ava didn't reach for it. She knew this moment was the core of it all. You're stealing my room, taking bribes, and dismissing responsibility. But remember, she paused, her gaze sweeping across each of them. Everything is being recorded. Harold faltered for a moment, then forced himself back into authority. "You're causing a disturbance. I'll call security right now." Seconds later, 2 imposing men, Trent Hale and Malik Stone, entered. Their shoes pounded against the marble, echoing through the hall. Trent blocked Ava's path, his hand resting lightly on his radio. "Mum, please, step away from the desk. You're disturbing other guests." Ava held up her phone screen, the word "confirmed" glowing brightly. "I have a reservation code. I paid. I'm not disturbing anyone. I am demanding my rightful room." Malik raised an eyebrow, his tone weary. "The hotel has the right to make adjustments. If you refuse to comply, we'll have to escort you out." From behind, Gregory watched gleefully, lifting a glass of wine from the bar as if to toast the public humiliation unfolding. Inside Ava, the fire of anger blazed, but her eyes shone brighter than ever. Perfect. Exactly what she needed. She stepped back half a pace, pulling her phone fully from her pocket, its screen glowing as the red recording icon pulsed for all to see. "Go ahead," Ava said softly. Yet her voice carried. The more evidence, the clearer the truth. Harold's face tightened. Gregory blinked, his smugness momentarily flickering, and all around, silent eyes of guests kept recording it all. In that instant, Ava Monroe, the woman dismissed for her appearance, denied the room she had paid for, smiled. It was not the smile of weakness, but of someone who already knew the ending. For none of them, not Harold, not Lydia, not Gregory, not even the 2 security guards, had the slightest idea that the woman they were trying to humiliate was the new owner of the building, and soon it would be their turn to be escorted out permanently. The echo of the security guard's footsteps still lingered in the marble lobby as Ava Monroe stepped into the elevator. In her hand, the new room keycard glowed with the cold words, Room 237. No VIP suite, no sweeping city view, just a forced downgrade, a humiliating stamp the hotel had pressed onto her record. The doors closed. In that brief moment, Ava allowed the anger to surge. Her breath came fast, her hands trembled, her heart pounded as if it would burst from her chest. But then she inhaled deeply. Anger was not the weapon. Evidence was the sharpest blade. Room 237 opened to a stench of mildew. Dim yellow light flickered from a sputtering lamp, casting shadows across stained walls. The carpet was worn thin, blotched with scars impossible to hide. The window framed a bleak scene. A loading dock, roaring trucks, workers clattering carts, the metallic crashes pounding like hammers against her skull. This was not a room to rest. This was a room of punishment. Ava set her suitcase down, her eyes sweeping every detail. Cracks in the ceiling, wrinkled bed sheets, an air conditioner wheezing like its dying breath. Every floor was another piece of evidence. She pulled out her phone, snapping photos, recording videos. In her head, she heard Dr. Sinclair's voice from last night's meeting. Prove it. Let the truth expose itself. Ava dialed the front desk. This is Maria Robinson in room 237. The room has multiple issues that need fixing. Her tone was calm but firm. A young female voice answered hesitantly. Sorry, ma'am. What kind of issues? Ava listed them. Flickering light, dirty carpet, broken air conditioner, constant noise from the service dock. Silence. Then the voice returned, changed, as if someone was whispering directions behind her. Apologies, ma'am, but this is the type of room appropriate for your booking tier. The issues will be resolved when possible. Booking tier? Ava narrowed her eyes. What did you just say? Oh, I meant, it's the room type for online discount bookings. The girl's voice trembled, like she had revealed too much. Ava's eyes hardened. She had heard enough. Not a glitch. Not operational needs. This was deliberate guest ranking. The squeak of housekeeping carts outside drew Ava to the door. Through the gap, she overheard 2 employees whispering. Did you see that mess in the lobby? Of course. Another black guest demanding a VIP suite. Peterson handled it. They burst out laughing, their voices echoing down the empty hall. Ava stood still, clutching her phone. Each laugh sliced open old scars, memories of mockery she had once endured in staff rooms. But this time was different. Now she held the fate of this place in her hands, and every snicker would become evidence against them. She hit record, capturing every laugh, every word. A message from Caleb flashed on her screen. How's it going? We're on standby. Just say the word. Ava typed back. Discrimination confirmed. Keep monitoring. This is only the beginning. Within seconds, Caleb sent a photo from the command room. The entire legal and management team gathered, preparing lawsuits and termination orders. Finally, a message from Dr. Sinclair appeared. Document everything. We'll strike soon. Ava allowed herself a faint smile. Her anger had cooled into icy resolve. She was not a victim. She was the judge preparing the verdict. That evening, Ava decided to inspect the hotel's facilities. She wanted to know if the discrimination stopped at the front desk, or if it seeped through every corner. At the pool, a young attendant eyed her from head to toe with suspicion. What do you need? I'm a guest in room 237. I'd like to use the pool. Ava handed over her key card. He studied it longer than necessary, then nodded. All right. But you need to shower first. Policy. Ava looked around. Several white guests had just walked in. None were told to shower. They laughed and dove straight into the water. Also, the attendant added, "The pool closes in 30 minutes. Ava pointed to the board on the wall. Hours until 11 p.m. It was only 8. Her chest tightened. This was no oversight. This was a rehearsed pattern of exclusion. The hotel restaurant was no different. Ava had a reservation, yet the hostess led her to a table by the kitchen door, noisy and smelling of grease. "This is the only table left for walk-ins." "But I reserved," Ava said, showing the confirmation email. The hostess plastered on a fake smile. "Sorry, just a small mix-up." Meanwhile, an entire row of window tables sat empty, waiting for the white guests who were welcomed with genuine warmth. Returning to the lobby, Ava caught the eyes of Jasmine Brooks, a young concierge clerk. Her gaze was unlike the others, filled with unease and regret. Jasmine waited until no one was looking, then approached in a hushed voice. "Ms. Robinson, I want to apologize. What happened in the lobby earlier, it wasn't right." Ava looked into her eyes and recognized rare sincerity. "Thank you. But tell me, how often does this happen?" Jasmine bit her lip, whispering, "More often than you think. Certain guests, like Mr. Stanton, get special treatment. They pay money, and management makes sure to keep the standards high. Guests like you are usually pushed aside." Ava nodded, her heart heavy yet proud. At last, a witness willing to speak the truth. She laid a gentle hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "Stay strong. Tomorrow, everything will change." That night in the dark confines of room 237, Ava did not sleep. The clatter of carts and metallic crashes filled the hall. But in the faint glow of her phone, photo after photo, video after video, recording after recording built up into an arsenal. She knew that come morning, with a single move, the Crown Line Grand would tremble. But before striking, she wanted one more step. She would walk straight into the heart of privilege, the executive lounge, a place they believed she had no right to ever enter. Dawn spilled across the city like a golden ribbon, but for Ava Monroe, the night had offered no peace. The clatter of carts, the drone of service elevators, the mocking laughter in the hallway had kept her awake. Yet the exhaustion only sharpened her resolve. This morning, Ava decided to take the final step. The executive lounge, the privilege that came with the VIP suite she had booked and fully paid for. Even though she had been shoved into the punishment chamber of room 237, her email confirmation still clearly included lounge access, and she would claim it. The elevator carried her to the 15th floor. The doors opened onto a carpeted hallway, leading to a dark wooden door crowned with a gold plaque. Executive Lounge VIP access only. Through the glass panel, Ava glimpsed men in fine suits, their laughter mingling with the aroma of coffee and champagne. At the entrance, a uniformed staff member stood tall like a guard, his nameplate reading Eli Turner. As Ava approached, he lifted a hand to block her, polite smile on his lips, coldness in his eyes. "Sorry, ma'am. This area is for VIP guests only." Ava raised her phone, the screen displaying clearly, "VIP suite, executive lounge access included." "I am a VIP guest. This is my confirmation. I paid. Lounge access is part of my package." Eli frowned, casting a quick glance inside, then stammered, "I need to check with management." A familiar laugh rang out from within the lounge. Ava tilted her head, and there he was, Gregory Stanton, seated at a window table, a mimosa in hand, a lavish breakfast laid before him. When his eyes met Ava's, his mouth twisted into a triumphant grin. He raised his glass in a cruel toast, mocking her as if to say she would never set foot inside. Ava's heart pounded, but her steps remained steady. "He's in there, isn't he?" she asked, her voice icy. Eli faltered, then forced out. "Mr. Stanton is a platinum guest. He has access any time." "And so do I," Ava shot back, lifting her phone again. "I paid." "Why is he allowed in and I am not?" Eli swallowed hard, eyes darting away. At that moment, two familiar shadows appeared behind Ava. Trent Hale and Malik Stone, the same security guards from yesterday. "Ma'am, please step away from this area," Trent said, his tone like steel. "I have the right to enter," Ava replied firmly. "Mr. Stanton requested not to be disturbed during breakfast. We must ensure his comfort as a VIP guest," Malik added, as if those words alone could erase all rules. Ava's gaze cut through them, then past the glass. Stanton remained in his seat, his grin widening, his stare taunting. In that instant, Ava knew the battle had reached its edge. There was nothing more to wait for. She turned, walking to a quiet corner of the hall. Her finger, trembling but determined, pressed a special sequence. The line connected directly to the Monroe Hospitality Group boardroom. The phone rang, then Dr. Loretta Sinclair's stern voice answered. "Ava, report." Ava drew a deep breath, her voice clear and unwavering. "Enough. I've seen it firsthand. This isn't about a few biased individuals. This is systemic, from managers to staff, from bribery to fabricated privilege. We must act now." On the other end, voices chimed in one by one. "Caleb, we've prepared the transition team. With your order, they'll be in place tomorrow morning. Renee Park, the Crown Line staff list has been reviewed. Anyone tied to discrimination will be removed immediately. Daniel Ortiz, attorney. We have sufficient evidence for a federal discrimination lawsuit. If filed, the media impact will be explosive." Ava closed her eyes, recalling the humiliations. Ignored at the desk, expelled from the VIP suite, shoved into the mold-ridden room 230-7, blocked at the pool, seated by the kitchen, and now stopped at the very lounge she had paid to enter. Each piece joined into a full picture. Systemic discrimination. "We won't just sue," Ava said, opening her eyes, her voice cutting like a blade. "We will purge. Every staff member involved will be terminated, and Gregory Stanton will be permanently banned from every Monroe hotel." Silence hung on the line. Then Dr. Sinclair replied, each word heavy as a bell. "Agreed. The board is unanimous. Action begins tomorrow morning." Ava ended the call, her heart pounding. She walked back toward the elevator, passing the glass where Gregory still sat. Their eyes locked. He raised his glass again, his smirk unshaken. But this time, Ava answered with a different smile, one that made Stanton falter. A smile carrying the secret he could not see. In just hours, his hollow power at Crown Line would collapse into nothing. Back in room 237, Ava opened her laptop and began compiling the evidence. The audio file of Harold taking a bribe, the photos of the squalid room, the video of security threatening a paying guest, the notes of Jasmine Brooks's confession. Each document was uploaded into Monroe Hospitality's legal system. Caleb's message arrived immediately. All received. Legal confirms this case could set the biggest precedent in hotel industry history. Ava typed a short reply. Not just a lawsuit. This will be a statement. That night, she stood at the window, watching truck lights flicker in the loading bay. She knew that with one more dawn, everything would change. Those who mocked her, those who believed power lay in skin color and wealth, would learn one truth. Real power lay in justice. And tomorrow's sunrise would not just mark a new day. It would mark the beginning of the greatest cleansing in Crown Line Hotel's history. The Crown Line Grand Lobby in the morning resembled a grand theatre. Sunlight streamed through massive glass panes, striking the marble floor and scattering into blinding reflections. Guests bustled in and out. The rumble of suitcases rolling across stone mingled with the soft strains of piano music hidden in the ceiling speakers. Everything radiated a cold luxury, like a flawless mask. Ava Monroe stepped out of the elevator, shoulders straight, eyes sharp. In her hand, her phone screen glowed with recordings, videos, photos, the truth stored like bullets waiting to be fired. At the front desk, Harold Briggs stood polished and poised, hair slicked, grey suit immaculate. He was smiling warmly at two guests, his face scrubbed clean of yesterday's hostility. The moment he spotted Ava, that smile shifted back to its familiar coldness. "Ms. Robinson," Harold sneered. "I trust room 237 was comfortable enough?" Ava met his eyes directly. "You know very well that was not a standard room. That was a punishment room, and I recorded every detail." Harold's smile faltered for a beat before arrogance returned. "Sometimes, for operational reasons, guests must accept adjustments. That is policy." Ava tapped her phone, playing back the recording from last night. The shaky voice of the front desk clerk filled the air. "This is the type of room appropriate for your booking tier," then cut off. Guests in the lobby turned to look. Harold's face drained. "You call that operational?" Ava's voice struck like thunder. "Or is it classifying guests by skin color?" The words rang through the marble hall. More guests stopped, quietly lifting their phones to record. Realizing control was slipping, Harold clenched his jaw and forced a calm tone. "You misunderstand. Here, we simply prioritize high-value customers. That is business." Ava tilted her head, her smile icy. "Business? And what about taking bribes right in front of me?" She pressed the screen again, this time showing a clip of Gregory Stanton sliding cash across the counter, Harold's hand sweeping it away in one fluid motion. The image was undeniable, every gesture captured. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sweat gathered on Harold's forehead. "That recording is not legal. You cannot film secretly. In a public space, it is perfectly legal," Ava snapped. "And I will use it." Before the tension broke, a black family entered the lobby. Two children tugged at their parents' hands, their eyes wide with excitement. The father approached the desk, presenting a confirmation. "We booked a family suite on the 8th floor." Lydia Clark took the paper, scanned it quickly, then shook her head. "I'm sorry. That room has an issue. We can only split you into 2 smaller rooms on different floors." The mother frowned. "But we need to stay with our children." Lydia feigned regret. "Truly, there are no other options." Ava felt her blood boil as she witnessed the scene. Memories flooded back of countless times she had seen the same injustice. Black families pushed aside while white guests were upgraded for free. She stepped forward, standing beside the family, her voice rising for all to hear. "Tell me, why is their booked room suddenly unavailable when this morning I saw an entire row of 8th floor rooms empty?" Lydia froze, eyes darting away. Harold snapped, "Ms. Robinson, do not interfere with our work." Ava turned, addressing the crowd now filming openly. Her voice rang, each word sharp as a blade. "This is no longer work. This is open discrimination. They have a confirmation, yet are being forced apart. Just like me yesterday, stripped of my VIP suite to make room for someone more important." The lobby erupted. Guests murmured in outrage. An elderly man declared, "I saw everything yesterday. She's telling the truth. Harold's face blanched. Desperate, he signaled to Trent and Malik. The two guards strode forward, voices cold. "Ms. Robinson, step away from the desk. You are disturbing the peace." Ava did not move, her stare piercing them. "Disturbing the peace? I am defending customer rights. And you? What are you defending? Discrimination? Bribery? Or the shaky chair this manager sits on?" Trent hesitated, his eyes flickering for the first time. Malik frowned, glancing at the crowd recording them, then stepped back slightly. A taut silence stretched across the lobby. Harold could feel his authority cracking. Ava turned to the family, pulling from her wallet a plain card. Not a CEO's business card, just a simple card with a number. She handed it to the father, whispering just loud enough. "Keep every piece of evidence. Tomorrow, call me. Everything will change." The man nodded, his eyes a mix of disbelief and hope. And the crowd? They were no longer silent spectators. Dozens of phones were fixed on Harold, Lydia, and the two guards. Unease spread like oil on water. Ava knew this public confrontation was the spark, but she remained calm, because she understood that in just one more night, when the plan ignited, the entire hotel would drown in the storm. Back in room 237, a message from Jasmine Brooks flashed on her screen. "I have to tell you this. Mr. Stanton has been paying management for years. They call it maintaining guest standards. In truth, it's to exclude black guests, not just here, other branches too." Ava gripped her phone tightly, her pulse racing. The answer she had waited for was finally here. This was not isolated misconduct. This was policy. She immediately called Priya Desai, Monroe Hospitality's chief legal officer. Ava's voice carried not that of a wronged guest, but of a CEO giving orders. "Priya, prepare termination papers for Harold Briggs and all staff involved. Launch an investigation across the entire Crown Line chain. Tomorrow morning, we go public." "Understood," Priya replied firmly. "Tomorrow will be historic." Night fell again. Ava stood by the window of room 237, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Below, the hotel bustled, its people unaware that within hours all their power would collapse. Ava whispered softly, as if making a vow to herself. "Tomorrow, the mask will fall, and they will see who truly owns this place." The morning sky blushed pink, but inside the Crown Line Grand, the air was still thick with luxury and pretense. After a sleepless night in the suffocating room 237, Ava Monroe stepped into the elevator. Her modest suit was pressed, her eyes blazed with clarity, and she knew today would be the day of reckoning. The doors opened on the 15th floor. Before her, a polished brass plaque gleamed. Executive Lounge VIP access only. The aroma of Arabica coffee and champagne drifted out, mingling with bursts of laughter from inside. Ava tightened her grip on her room keycard. Her confirmation email still read, "Executive Lounge access included." Today, she would not let them deny her what she had paid for. Eli Turner still stood guard at the door, his smile rigid. As Ava approached, he straightened. "Sorry, ma'am. This area is for VIP guests only." Ava raised her phone screen, her tone steady. "I'm a VIP guest. This is my booking confirmation, which includes lounge access." Eli glanced at it, eyes uneasy. "I need to confirm with management." But before he could move, a familiar laugh carried out. Ava leaned slightly, through the glass, spotting Gregory Stanton at a window table, mimosa in hand, gesturing animatedly among men in black suits. When his eyes met Ava's, his smirk widened. He lifted his glass in a cruel mock toast. Ava's heart clenched, but her gaze never wavered. She turned back to Eli, her voice firm. "I have the right to enter." "Why are you blocking me?" Eli lowered his tone. "Mr. Stanton has requested not to be disturbed during breakfast. We must ensure the comfort of our VIP guests." Ava let out a cold laugh. "So one guest decides who may enter and who may not. His money outweighs my legal rights?" Eli remained silent, and as if on cue, two familiar figures appeared behind her. Trent Hale and Malik Stone. "Ma'am," Trent said, his voice hard as steel, "please step away from this area." "I have VIP confirmation," Ava replied, lifting her phone. "I paid $800 for the suite. The lounge is included." Malik shook his head, weary. "Mr. Stanton does not wish to be disturbed. We must prioritize his comfort." In that instant, Ava realized this was no longer quiet bias. This was a public declaration. We choose wealthy white guests. You, a black woman, are not worthy. Through the glass, Stanton stared at her, raising his glass once more, his smug smile carved deeper. Ava stepped back, but her eyes never left his. Her chest burned, but her mind was cold and razor-sharp. She knew it was time to trigger the plan. She walked into a quiet corner of the hallway and pulled out her phone, a special number known only to the Monroe Hospitality Board. 3 rings. Dr. Loretta Sinclair's voice cut through, sharp. "Ava, report." Ava drew a deep breath, her eyes still fixed on Stanton through the glass, sitting like a false victor. "Enough. I've seen it with my own eyes. This isn't isolated. This is systemic. From clerks to managers, from security to Stanton's platinum privilege, they are all complicit, and I have enough evidence." Caleb's voice burst in, urgent. "We're ready. The transition team awaits your command." Renee Park followed. "The Crown Line staff list has been reviewed. Those involved will be removed immediately." Daniel Ortiz, the lawyer, spoke with icy precision. "We have sufficient documentation for a federal lawsuit. This will be the biggest detonation in the hotel industry." Ava closed her eyes for a moment. Memories flashed. Harold pocketing Stanton's cash, Lydia coldly dismissing a black family, Trent and Malik circling her in the lobby, the mocking laughter of housekeeping staff, all stitched into a single dark canvas. "We won't just sue," Ava said, opening her eyes, her voice sharp as a blade. "We will cleanse. Every complicit staff member gone, and Stanton permanently banned from every Monroe property. I want this judgment to serve as a warning to the entire industry." Silence stretched for a beat, then Dr. Sinclair's voice rang out, steady as a bell. "The board is unanimous. We act tomorrow morning. Ava, prepare to go public." Ava ended the call, feeling as though she had just signed a declaration. Her heart pounded, but her eyes gleamed with fierce light. She looked back through the glass one last time. Stanton was still smiling, but this time Ava returned a smile of her own, a smile that made him falter, a smile that heralded the storm. Back in room 237, Ava opened her laptop and organized the evidence. The video of Harold taking a bribe, photos of the punishment room, the recording of the clerk saying, "This is the type of room appropriate for your booking tier," the testimony of Jasmine Brooks, all uploaded to the legal system. Caleb's message arrived instantly. Received. This lawsuit could set the biggest precedent in hotel history. Ava typed her reply. "Not just a lawsuit. This will be a message." Night fell. Room 237 still rattled with the noise of service elevators. The light still flickered. But in the darkness, Ava's eyes glowed. Below, the hotel bustled on, unaware that by morning, everything would collapse. Ava whispered, a vow to herself. Tomorrow, Crown Line Grand will learn that power is not money or skin color. Real power is justice, and the next dawn would not just light a new day, it would expose the truth and strip away the false mask of Crown Line hotels. 8:47 a.m. A message lit up Ava Monroe's phone. All in position. Legal team ready. It's time. Ava lifted her head. Through the dusty window of room 237, she saw sleek black SUVs rolling into the parking lot, their glass glinting in the sunlight like blades. One by one, doors opened and figures stepped out in suits, lawyers, management experts, board members. Their arrival was quiet but relentless, like chess pieces being placed for the final match. In the 15th floor lounge, Gregory Stanton sipped his coffee, lounging like a man basking in victory. His brow furrowed as he caught sight of the procession below. From above, he watched suited figures carrying briefcases entering the hotel from all directions, the main entrance, the underground garage, the side doors. His cup froze halfway. A dark intuition crept over his face. "What the hell is going on?" Gregory muttered. Down in the lobby, Harold Briggs was checking reservations when a familiar figure emerged from the elevator. Ava Monroe. Gone was the quiet demeanor of days before. Today, she walked with authority. Her modest suit carried no extravagance, but her eyes blazed, and her face radiated power, not patience. Harold froze, his voice cracking as he tried to salvage his authority. You again!" "I told you, VIP suites aren't for Peo." He never finished. The hotel's intercom system roared to life. "All Crown Line Grand staff, report immediately to the Grand Ballroom for an emergency meeting. This is mandatory." The announcement thundered across the atrium, echoing up every floor. Staff stopped in place, staring at one another in confusion. Harold went pale. "Who authorized that?" "I never. You're about to find out," Ava answered, her tone sharp as steel. The Grand Ballroom, usually glowing under crystal chandeliers, had become a courtroom. Hundreds of staff crowded inside, whispering anxiously. On stage, a line of figures stood waiting. Dr. Loretta Sinclair with her dignified silver hair, Daniel Ortiz holding a thick folder, Caleb Nguyen with steady eyes. The doors swung open. Ava Monroe entered. Every eye turned, silence falling heavy as waves. Harold lunged forward, voice trembling but forced into a snarl. "This meeting is for staff only. You have no right here." Loretta stepped up, her gaze stern and sweeping. "Mrs. Monroe has more right than anyone here. She is the new owner of Crown Line Hotels." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Harold was struck dumb. Gregory Stanton, who had rushed in at the back, nearly dropped his cup of coffee. Ava climbed the stage. Her voice rang out, needing no microphone to carry across the hall. "I am Ava Monroe, CEO and founder of Monroe Hospitality Group. For the past 3 days, I have stayed here as an ordinary guest, and I have seen what you believed you could hide: discrimination, bribery, humiliation of customers." The LED screen behind her lit up. The images from Ava's phone appeared. Harold pocketing Stanton's cash, Lydia feigning system glitches, Trent and Malik forcing guests out, the squalid room 237, and the recording of housekeeping staff mocking. The air grew heavy. Many employees covered their mouths, shocked. "This," Ava paused, her gaze sweeping the hall, "is not personal error. This is a rotten culture. And today, it ends." Daniel Ortiz stepped forward, his voice commanding. "Based on irrefutable evidence, Monroe Hospitality's board hereby terminates immediately. Harold Briggs, Lydia Clark, Eli Turner, Trent Hale, Malik Stone, and all individuals tied to discriminatory and corrupt behavior." A wave of murmurs rippled through the hall, Harold's face drained of color. Lydia lowered her head, tears spilling. Eli slumped his shoulders, while Trent and Malik exchanged glances, regret dawning too late. "And you?" Ava turned, locking eyes with Gregory Stanton as he edged toward the exit. "You paid for favoritism. You stole my suite. You upheld this system of prejudice. From today, you are permanently banned from all 47 Monroe hotels." Loretta Sinclair held up the document, her voice sharp. "Mr. Stanton's platinum status is revoked. The permanent ban takes effect immediately." Gregory's face flushed crimson. "You can't do this to me. You bribed. You discriminated. And you were recorded." Ava cut him off, her voice like ice. Across the hall, honest staff like Jasmine Brooks stood, eyes brimming with emotion. Ava turned to her and smiled. "Jasmine Brooks will be entered into our management training program. I need people willing to tell the truth." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then swelling until it drowned the silence. Ava raised her hand, her voice booming like thunder. "From today, Crown Line Grand will no longer be a monument to privilege and prejudice. It will stand as a beacon of fairness. Anyone repeating these mistakes will be removed instantly. In my hotels, every guest is VIP." Gregory Stanton stumbled toward the exit, pale as chalk. Harold was escorted out, his eyes vacant. Those who strutted proudly yesterday now stood as the judged before the crowd. And Ava Monroe, the woman once scorned in this very lobby, now stood on stage not only as the owner, but as a living symbol of justice. In the hearts of many, a new feeling rose: respect. Ava left the stage, her eyes scanning the staff who remained. She knew this was only the beginning. 6 months of reform lay ahead, firings, hiring, retraining from scratch. But the seed had been planted. Crown Line would be reborn, and the industry would remember this day as a warning. Never before had an owner dared to expose discrimination so publicly in front of staff and guests alike. As the ballroom doors closed behind her, Ava whispered to herself, "Justice is not begged for. Justice is claimed," and she had claimed it, for herself, for the forgotten guests, and for the future of an entire industry. News of the Crown Line Grand Purge spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, dozens of major newspapers ran front-page headlines: "Secret CEO exposes discrimination at Crown Line," "Ava Monroe," and "The Shockwave in Hospitality." Television replayed the footage of Ava confronting Harold, the clip of Stanton handing over cash, and the moment she announced her ownership. Social media exploded. The hashtag #RationJustice at Crown Line shot to the top of the national trending list. Guest shot videos from the lobby and the ballroom were shared millions of times. The nation watched as a black woman, once dismissed and humiliated, in a single day, tore the mask off a prestigious hotel chain. But for Ava Monroe, the real work had only begun. The very next day, the entire management tier of Crown Line Grand was replaced. Monroe Hospitality's team marched in with iron discipline and the philosophy that every guest is VIP. Ava was not just changing staff, she was transforming culture at its core. New training sessions stretched from morning until late night. On the screens, Ava replayed the very clips of discrimination she had endured. Harold pocketing Stanton's bribe, security surrounding her, Lydia denying a black family. Her voice carried over the silent crowd of employees. This is what must never happen again. Anyone who stays must choose fairness. Anyone who cannot accept it may leave now. Over 40 people resigned in the first week. But those who remained, the staff who had once been forced into silence, people like Jasmine Brooks, stayed with eyes alight. Jasmine became the living proof. On the 10th day of reform, Ava invited her into the new executive office with its glass walls overlooking the city. The young woman entered nervously, hands trembling, but before she could speak, Ava placed a folder in front of her. Management Training Program. Jasmine, I want you in it. Jasmine's eyes widened with tears. But I'm just a concierge. No, Ava smiled. You are the only one who dared to speak up. That is the mark of a leader. I began with a mop and a housekeeping cart. Titles don't define you. Courage does. Jasmine lowered her head, voice breaking. Thank you. I won't let you down. The rebirth stretched across 6 months. Ava visited every Crown Line branch, listening to staff, engaging with guests, noting every detail. The entire system was flipped. From reservations to greetings to random attitude checks, nothing was untouched. New rules were enforced. Zero tolerance for discrimination. A reward system where employees, praised by guests for fairness, received instant bonuses. A voice channel for any staff to report managerial misconduct in confidence. No more fake smiles for important guests and frowns for those deemed unworthy. Every guest was greeted the same. Welcome to Crown Line, where everyone is VIP. Results came faster than anyone expected. After 3 months, customer satisfaction ratings soared by 40%. After 6 months, Crown Line Grand's revenue climbed by 30%. Other branches, once infected with the same culture, revived after adopting the new model. And Jasmine? From concierge to assistant manager in 3 months, then deputy manager in 6. On the day of her promotion, she stood on stage, eyes brimming with tears as she looked at Ava. 6 months ago, I was too afraid to speak above a whisper. Today I stand here because someone gave me faith. Mrs. Ava Monroe didn't just change this hotel. She changed my life. Applause thundered, unending. The media called it the Crown Line miracle. But Ava knew it was not a miracle. It was the price of justice, the courage to confront discrimination, to endure humiliation, and to turn evidence into a weapon. One evening, in the VIP suite that was finally hers, Ava sat by the window. The city outside glowed bright, while in her hand lay the final report. Crown Line Grand, from crisis to symbol of fairness. She smiled softly and took a sip of wine. In her mind still echoed Stanton's words. Some guests are more important than others. Ava shook her head. Wrong, Stanton. No one is more important than anyone else. Not here. Not ever again. A rare peace filled her heart. But Ava also knew this was not an ending. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where Crown Line hotels under her hand would lead the charge against discrimination across the entire industry. And somewhere, a new generation of staff was looking to her as their model, like Jasmine, like the hundreds once silent who now dared to stand tall. Ava knew the day she was humiliated in that lobby was not the day she lost her dignity. It was the day justice began to be rewritten. On the final night of the 6-month reform, Crown Line Grand gleamed like a reborn jewel. From the grand lobby to the corridors, from lavish suites to standard rooms, everything radiated a new atmosphere of warmth, welcome, and fairness. Ava Monroe walked slowly across the lobby. The place that had once been the stage of humiliation now echoed with laughter from guests and staff alike. The curious, disdainful stares of the past had been replaced with respect and trust. Jasmine Brooks was busy directing the team at the front desk. In a crisp new uniform and with a radiant smile, the young woman who once trembled as she whispered the truth now stood tall as the assistant general manager. When she saw Ava, Jasmine paused, bowing her head with gratitude. "Mrs. Munro, everything is ready for the press conference." Ava nodded softly, her heart swelling with pride. She knew Jasmine was not just an employee promoted. She was a symbol of what Ava had fought to protect, the voice of truth, even when it was small and trembling. The grand ballroom, once the scene of Harold Briggs and Gregory Stanton's public reckoning, was now elegantly adorned to welcome the press and national partners. Hundreds of cameras pointed toward the stage. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. When Ava stepped onto the platform, the hall fell silent. The woman once scorned in room 237 now stood poised and commanding. She began, her voice warm but resolute. 6 months ago, I entered Crown Line Grand as an ordinary guest. I was ignored, humiliated, and stripped of the rights I had paid for. I was pushed into a dark room while my VIP suite was handed to someone else simply because of skin color and money. The lights illuminated Ava's face, her dark eyes shining with determination. But in that darkness, I found strength. Strength not in wealth or privilege, but in truth and justice. And today, I stand here to declare Crown Line Hotels has changed forever. Applause thundered, but Ava raised her hand, calling for calm. She continued, "Justice does not come from polished slogans hung on walls. Justice comes from action, from how we treat those who seem the smallest. I want Crown Line to stand as proof that every guest is VIP. No one excluded, no one diminished, no one denied for being different." She paused, locking eyes with the cameras, sending her message to the world. If any hotel believes it can continue to discriminate and still survive, look at Crown Line today. Discrimination is not just a sin. It is business suicide. The press erupted in applause. A senior journalist stood up to ask, "Mrs. Munro, what do you believe gave you the strength to stand against an entire system?" Ava smiled, her eyes flickering with distant memories. "Because I was once the doorkeeper, the cleaner, the one mocked behind my back. I know the pain of being dismissed. And I promised myself that if I ever had the power to change it, I would never let anyone else endure that. Today, I am only keeping that promise." After the press conference, Ava returned to the presidential suite, the very room taken from her 6 months ago. As the door opened, the soft scent of jasmine drifted through the air, curtains swaying in the breeze. Everything was perfect, but what made Ava smile was not the luxurious decor. It was the meaning. This room now belonged to all the guests who had once been denied. She poured a glass of wine and stood by the window overlooking the city at night. In her heart, the memory of being pushed into room 237 remained vivid, but it was no longer a wound. It was a marker. Because without that punishment room, there would have been no revolution today. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jasmine appeared. "Mrs. Munro, thank you. I and many others will continue to carry forward the fairness you began." Ava smiled gently and typed back, "Jasmine, not me. It is you who carry the flame." She set the phone down and sipped her wine. Outside, the city lights burned like thousands of torches. Ava whispered, her voice blending with the wind. "Crown Line is not just a hotel, it is proof. Proof that fairness is not a distant dream, but something that can be built if we dare to stand." And so, from a small room, from what seemed like a meaningless humiliation, Ava Munro had turned it into a fire that burned away a rotten culture and rebirthed a symbol of fairness. That story will be told and retold, not for pity, but as a reminder. When one person dares to stand, an entire system is forced to its knees. In that dark room 237, Ava Monroe was once rejected as someone unworthy, but just 6 months later, that very place became the starting point of a revolution. She proved that fairness is not something to beg for, but something to claim through action. If this story touched you, hit like to spread the message. Subscribe so you will not miss the journeys ahead, where justice is brought to light. And before you leave, drop a comment with the words, "Justice won," to affirm that you too believe in a world where everyone is treated fairly. Because in the end, the greatest legacy is not in grand buildings, but in how we protect each other's dignity.